Kiran, the first question that I have is, you are a doctor, right?
Hmm.
Yes. But interestingly, like you might have noticed that whenever I sign off on places, or that's how we ended our first conversation about why I decided to take up this job, because I wanted that preface, right? I want to be
Yeah.
preface for life as Dr. Elson Joy. I noticed that you're not doing the same, right? Maybe on your social. Any particular reason why you're not doing that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of twofold. So, dentist, we are doctors. There's a little bit of a thing about how we're fake doctors. Okay. But I would say that when I first moved online, I really did think about putting it on because immediately, like on Medium, for example, there are doctors on there that nothing to do with what they're writing about. And
Yeah.
you get that authority side of things, like you mentioned. I want us to have a little bit averse to that sort of stuff. So a big thing is I was quitting dentistry because the status dragged me in, and I wanted to start that whole thing fresh.
Okay. Awesome. That's very interesting that you put it that way. Dentistry has actually helped me open a lot of doors, right? I think I mentioned that in our previous conversation that when people realize that, hey, this guy was, a dentist, there's two things that I say. A lot of people ask me, hey, why did you quit dentistry? And I say, I didn't quit dentistry. I want to get back to it. Maybe later on in my life when money is no longer the focus,
Mhm.
right? When I want to do it because I really love that, because I really like, treating patients and all of that. Because it's very fulfilling, to be honest, when a patient comes to you and he's like, "Thank you, doctor." So that's when I'm like, "Hey, I'm no. It's not that I've quit dentistry. I'll probably get back to it." And the second part is it's helped me open doors because people have recognized that, hey, this guy is someone who actually stopped digging, right? Or who paused digging and he's trying to walk back up, or is, probably taking a tangent. And that has helped open doors. People have recognized that, and they've seen that I've had other skills too, in spite of it. Because people are aware of the whole situation in dentistry. So, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I actually use the dental card a lot.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's the
And to
same
be
here.
fair,
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, I do use it with my topics.
Okay.
If your first line is "I'm a dentist," like immediately there's like a hook there.
Yeah.
So I'm not like completely innocent. I do use it.
Yeah. And also, like, I have been doing a little bit of practicing on the side. It's been hard to take off that bug. When someone actually reaches out with an opportunity, I can't say no. So I think it's that bug is still there. Uh, but okay, Rehan, any questions? Any elephants in the room that you want to address?
Yeah, I mean, this status thing is actually pretty annoying for me as an engineer because, being an engineer probably has some status abroad. People are probably looked up to when they become engineers, probably in the US, or if they graduate as engineers in the UK, but not so much here in India. I mean, it's so common. There's so many of us that it's pretty much that nobody really cares if you're an engineer anymore. In fact, I mean, these days you have engineers who end up taking up very regular jobs like working at McDonald's and things like that. It's come down to that because of the supply and demand issue.
Well,
So yeah, so it's pretty bad that way. But it's worse now that there are some architects who've started putting initials before their names, and that annoys me a little more than doctors.
Okay, guys.
Because
Trigger warning.
it's
Trigger warning.
especially being a civil engineer, there's a lot of overlap between the kind of work that architects and we do. Not so much, but there is a certain level of familiarity. So it does annoy me, but it's okay.
Rehan throwing some
But
punches out there. Okay.
yeah, trigger warning for all the architect friends that I have and anyone else who's listening. But so the question that I have here, I mean, since we've already started talking about taking the plunge, this was a question that I asked in the previous episode as well. That there was very little knowledge about what I was getting into when I decided to take up engineering. And soon after I did start studying that as well, I realized that it was not something that I wanted to do. But unlike most people, especially like Indians, there was no pressure because of which I picked it. It was because of a lack of knowledge about things that were out there, and more so a lack of knowledge about what I felt passionate about. Right, that kind of sort of narrowed my vision, and I thought that okay, let me just do what everyone else is doing, take the safe route. and then we'll figure things, because it's pretty common for Indian engineers to change fields, to do their bachelor's and that, and then just move to something else. But the struggle that I've had in my life ever since I that's the second year of college, where I figured that I did not want to do engineering, was to figure what I actually want to do. And that kept me sort of up at night a lot of days, and it was this constant question that I had in my mind, that okay, what is it that I want to do. I know what I don't want to do, but it became very hard for me to figure out what is it that I'm genuinely passionate about, which is what I was explaining the other day when we were speaking as well, that I sort of took the entrepreneurship path so that I could experience different things, dabble with different opportunities within the company that I'd started, whether it was marketing or design or whatever it was, to figure out what I feel happy doing. So I wanted to understand, considering that you were able to make that shift, you were able to take that plunge. What process did you go through to find out that this is something that you are genuinely, or writing is something that you are genuinely passionate about, and it is your calling. It is truly your calling, compared to, let's say, dentistry that you had started your pursuit towards.
Yeah. Well, firstly, very similar to what you said. A lot of sleepless nights, being like, "What am I doing?" You kind of, if you're turning up every day doing something but you're not feeling very energized by it, you do start to question things, and it's quite difficult as well, especially like engineers and stuff. You could be in the right job, kind of like for the wrong reasons, and just because there's nothing wrong with your job doesn't make it right for you. So then I found for me, when COVID hit, I had a little bit of time to pause, really. And like you said, you've kind of been doing what everyone else is doing, all running in the same direction. And then when that direction stopped you, I was kind of like, okay, well, let's have a little look around and explore. So I just started dabbling, because you don't really know what, like Naval talks about specific knowledge. You don't know what makes you tick, especially if you were very early into a career, like 18, you jump straight in. So I started messing around with whatever looked cool. Whatever I was like, this looks like whatever they're doing, I want to do that. So I think I started off hoping to get into YouTube. So, some cool people doing that.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. That was my first big push. I thought I was quite funny. I don't know. But what happened there, I was doing it for like a month, just writing jokes. And then when I was doing that, I realized that the telling of the jokes was fun, but the writing, I was sitting there for hours, like laughing and changing words and stuff. And I was like, if I was just writing, I would be 10 times happier. So, and again, straight into the whole kind of sunken cost. I had told all my friends I was going to be a stand-up comedian. And so the next time they came to see me, I was like, no, I've sacked that off as well. So then I realized that writing was something that I was really enjoying. So there's a quote from Jack Butcher where, if you find something that gives you energy when you're not getting kind of rewarded for it, if you focus in on that thing, then that's really where you can find purpose. So when I started looking at writing, I realized that there was a lot of stuff, for example, that I enjoyed with dentistry, helping people, communicating, kind of knowing that you're making a difference. And then I thought, well, look, like if you look at some of the writers, you have the same scope except to a global audience. So the more I got into the writing, the more I realized that you kind of go through like stages. You start off with an interest, and then the more time you put into it, it starts to become a bit of a passion. And I think at this point, particularly if you're quite busy, you find out if something is an interest or an obsession. Because when you stop getting validation, or you're not getting any validation, you've got doubts, but you still go, then you sort of realize that that's something a little bit more special. So then over like a year, I just carried on writing. So writing every morning. I was working 2 jobs with dentistry, so it was about 50-hour a week, 6 days sort of thing. And then I was just writing in the mornings, in the evenings, in my lunch breaks. That was my thing.
Okay. So how long has it been since you have done this? Once that you have taken it full time and you've completely decided?
Well,
Yeah.
so I started writing about a year ago. I handed in my notice with work from my first job. I'd done that in about February. So I still really wasn't that sure, but I did know that I needed more time to invest into something else. And then I quit my next job around now. And then this is going down, it's kind of like a phased transition. So I've got a job now where I'll be doing dentistry for 2-3 days a week. And then that should hopefully be done. I'm aiming for next April, May.
And you're currently in cosmetics, right? Cosmetic dentistry. That's what you.
Cosmetic dentistry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
What?
so it does feel like you're kind of giving up the big bucks a lot.
No, I like how you've even the way you've given up. I'm not no, not given up. I don't think that's a word. How you have phased it out, right?
Proudly not giving up.
Yeah, how you have phased it out. That's also an interesting way. Say, for example, a dentist also who is looking to say enter a different field and is stuck and does not have any of those skills. The way you did it is first, you explored it as a side hustle. Maybe put it during your lunch breaks. Then it started to occupy a little bit more time. It started becoming an obsession where you had to dedicate so much amount of time. Uh, and another thing that I want to mention is that Kiran, you already have, a significant presence online, right? With your, you did start with your blogs. You have, say, an ebook that you have written. You have a fair amount of tweets, etc. too. So it's not like it's like a sudden click that you're like, hey, I'm giving up or I'm leaving that entirely and I'm completely transitioning. So that was the duration. That was a phased out transition, right? Could you
Yeah, definitely.
explain a little bit more on what you did before you decided to plunge, or how much
Yeah.
of ammunition you already have ready?
Yeah, I mean, really, kind of two things from the phased side of ways. There's some people will say like, yo, you quit, you go all in, and that's quite like it's got like a romantic tone to it.
Yeah.
People like I quit my job now, and a year later I'm a full-time writer. But you only hear about the people that make it for that. There's quite a big survivorship bias, and firstly, if you're not too sure, like I said, you find out if you are sure if you can do it whilst working a full-time job. And when you don't have financial pressure in terms of exploring what you need to do, that's a very big bias. Because if I had quit dentistry straight away and watched my bank account go down and down and down, I wouldn't be writing content and exploring what I find interesting. I would be doing copywriting and making websites money straight away. And really, there's kind of like an opportunity cost to that. So I'm I like optionality. I like to know that doors stay open until you're ready to close them. So if I quit dentistry 9 months ago, I would have been saying, "Oh God, did I make that right decision?" But after a year, it seems completely obvious to me that it's the right thing to do. So
Okay.
I was kind of working on the way of what I would regret the most later on. And now it's like you because like you say, man, dentistry is not a bad job. There could be a lot worse careers out there.
Yeah.
But it was nice to sort of take that time to work out if it was the right move, while simultaneously building something to go to. So I had done the whole testing out phase, like you're saying. I started a website, then I moved over to Medium, and I wrote on Reddit for a little bit, and then I found Twitter, and everything started to click. So in a couple months, I'm coming up to 2,000 followers, and then I was like, I know now that I can build a business here based on my writing, and then I was happy to sort of quit.
Right.
I think Kieran brought up a very good point where he said that when you have that sort of financial safety net, I think it becomes slightly easier for you to take that plunge and explore. You're not thinking so much about making money right off the bat. You're thinking a little bit about actually finding your passion,
Hmm.
which I think is not an opportunity that every Indian student at least has.
No.
Because you guys, both of you, for that matter, were fairly good at your academics and were, on the path of getting good jobs, fairly good paying jobs, in the thing that you had pursued initially as well. But what kind of advice would you give to, let's say, someone who probably did not do really well and decided to, probably shift when they realized that they were not about to get a job in what they had studied, and they were not going to get a good job because they anyway did not do well in their academics, and they'd already realized that, that they don't enjoy what they were studying, and now they've come to that point where they don't have a job. They anyway, the what they had studied was not something that they enjoyed. Their families do not have, let's say, great financial backing to support them. In that situation, how do you, let's say, suggest to someone that they start figuring out what is it that they should do, and start pursuing that?
I guess there's two ways you sort of go about it. Right? If you've not got a job, first and foremost, you need to take care of that, because you can't kind of climb that hierarchy of working out exactly what it is until you've got a little bit of money. You don't need a lot. I know Naval says that people that can live well below their means enjoy a freedom of life that most people don't get to experience. So if you can take care of your basic kind of stuff, and it's a similar way, really. I mean, you work in your day job to support your habit of finding out what the hell you're actually going to do, and then sure, you might start thinking a bit more laterally about, well, any skill that I'm going to learn, how can I use that to start bringing in enough money to stop doing whatever I'm doing at the moment. So, for example, online writing, which is one thing I love about it, is that if you spend 2 to 3 months, a couple hours a day learning one aspect of writing, quite a specific thing, email marketing, copywriting, direct response, there is a whole internet out there of people that haven't got a clue what they're doing. And all you need to learn is how to do a bit of outreach. And I mean, particularly in India, I'd imagine your running costs are a lot lower than in England. You only need like one American person to pay you enough to write the copy for the website, and I imagine you'd be sorted for a couple of months. So I think the first thing really is appreciating that online you can make a fair bit of money quite early if that's what you need to do. But you have to be able to put in the work. A skill doesn't land in your lap. And, it's tough. If you haven't got the money, you kind of need to work on both. But you find out what you're kind of made of at the lowest points, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing, actually. So that actually happened with one of my co-founders. So, he did not have the most, best kind of support back at home with respect to him, trying to make the shift. You mentioned you get one American client and you're sorted for the next couple of months. I think that's exactly what happened to him. He went on to, Upwork and Fiverr. In fact, funnily, Elson, he read your boss's book, Pajama Profit. That kind of inspired him to take up some freelance work. And so taking up that job gave him the capital that he needed to invest back in the startup.
Yeah.
And then he continued doing that for a while until we started our secondary business to make money. But yeah, that was a good way for him to both get some experience in what he wanted to do, because he wanted to become, a designer. And then he started taking up freelance design work abroad, which paid him fairly well compared to, let's say, the Indian standards.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, gave him the push and helped him get started.
I'll add something here. What Rayan mentioned is, what if you're not making some money out of the job that you've already invested in, right? Say you're a dental student, but you're not good at it, or you're not making much. You realize your future is not very bright. I think that's actually a really good thing. You look at that as an advantage. It's actually harder if you're good at dentistry. Imagine if you're good at, it was hard for me. I'm not just saying because I was okay at the subject, but also because I knew I could make a career out of it, right? I could just carry on my mom's practice or any of her colleagues, just sit with them, and I knew my life was set. So, when I recognized that my future is also fairly decent, it was harder to pull off, and for someone who does not have that, I'm like, that's perfect. If you suck at it, then great. More reasons to leave. And the second that I want to mention is that about the freelancing. What you mentioned is, okay, you just need to know basics of the skill, take a couple of months to study that, learn a little bit of outreach, and that's it. And that's exactly what I want to tell, that most people don't do that. really good students, they won't do that, right? If someone's really good at dentistry, etc., they won't look out. They'll stop searching. And that's the big problem with any field. If you're really good at something and you start convincing yourself that this is good, right? You start searching, you close the door. You don't let opportunities even enter the door. Or you don't look out of the window long enough. Not recognizing that there's so many opportunities out there is what hurts even more. So I think that's important to realize that it's always good to have, more than one skill, and, keep that optionality alive, and know that there are some low hanging fruits that you can easily pick up. Now, Kieran, I want to ask you this. So you mentioned, I think in one of our conversations that, how some of the skills in dentistry actually helped, transferred, and it helped you, especially the hardworking bit. I think it was your girlfriend or someone who asked you, right? Kieran, why are you working so hard? Why are you putting in so much money? So 2 questions there. One is, how hard are you actually working? And a little bit more on how those skills actually helped transfer.
Kind of 12 to 13 hours a day. And the thing is, I actually don't advocate this sort of thing. I think the hustle sort of stuff is sometimes a bit glorified, but I feel like the more time you put into something, the better it gets. But I only kind of learned how to work that hard because of dentistry, and this doesn't feel hard compared to it. Sometimes I would work 9 till 9, 12-hour shifts of dentistry, and my God, like, you come out of that 20 years older. But now if I get to write for 12 hours, and I say writing, like Twitter or interacting or reading about stuff to write about, it feels like I'm on holiday 24/7. So that's when I know that I'm really doing something I enjoy.
Yeah.
My girlfriend saw, she's like, "Oh, yeah, you're working very hard at this thing," and I was like, "This is just okay compared to dentistry." But yeah, so you mentioned about the qualities from dentistry. At first, and some of my friends are the same, that they kind of want to get out of dentistry. You feel a little bit bitter because you think you're very specialized. You're like, well, I can't drill a tooth on Twitter.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things you learn from like a confidence side of things. I mean, if you're meeting 30 people a day, you become very good at communicating confidently. Sales, it all naturally embeds. Like, I hear people talking about sales courses and stuff, and I took a couple looks on Twitter. I clicked on a couple pages and I was like, this is just
So
like
boring.
basic
I know all of
English,
this.
but yeah, like, not in an arrogant way, but you don't appreciate some of the qualities that are quite transferable until you start putting it into practice in a completely different field.
I'll tell you that. So even I've been involved with a little bit of sales work, and there's that initial of qualifying your leads, prospecting for the right kind of lead. And I get deep into my prospecting, right? When I'm building that list, and I'm like, it becomes stalkerish. My habit becomes stalkerish, where I'm like, I know everything about this guy, right? I even have a reputation for that. I'm like, I'll probably know what he's had for breakfast. Like, I can guess all of that, and then I can make judgments, calculations. And then I'm like, no, that's very similar to what I was doing in dentistry also. Like, when I was taking someone's medical history, and if that person's lying, it was easy for me to catch him. Like, I'd ask him, do you smoke? And he'd be like, no. And I'm like, you sure? You're like, okay, maybe sometimes, So that Sherlock Holmes in me has actually helped kick. And like you mentioned, the communication, the hard hours, the backs, the physical strain, the mental strain, being able to multitask, So it's both about having your environment around you. So you have to be cognizant about what's happening around you, but also focused on what you need to do. So yeah, a lot of those skills do help you. Your dental skills can translate. Also, a lot of the skills that you learn outside, like we mentioned, like I mentioned previously, knowing those things will actually help you with your dentistry also, right? You can actually become a really good dentist if you know how to make a website. You can actually become a really good dentist if, say, you're good at carpentry. That's an example that I keep telling you, because just knowing how to hold a chisel and a mallet, and knowing your joints properly can actually improve your dexterity too. So skills are very transferable. I think the lines between industries are just blurring. Uh,
It's funny you say that because when I was learning how to write, maybe in like January time, I applied for another job in dentistry, thinking that the idea was I would do this one for 2 to 5 years, but only work 3 days a week.
yeah,
And a lot of pre-interview stuff is emails. And anyway, I got the job at the interview, and he said to me then, he was like, I knew that we wanted to employ you from your emails. And I was like, firstly, that's ridiculous because I'm a dentist. Like, you don't know anything about my work, but it's just because you learn how to communicate online, which most people don't, you come across extremely professional. So like you're saying, it kind of plays into two, really.
Yeah, but this makes me a little curious because right now what you guys were discussing was about transferable skills, and I mean there was a fairly big list there. There were fairly impressive things that you guys mentioned, and the one that struck me the most was about communication and how that can be transferred to sales and things like that. But even then, it's fairly uncommon for people to take that plunge, especially like people who are studying medicine. Compared to again comparing to engineers, where it's very common. So I wanted to understand that because when I think about me, I don't know, I don't look back and think that, okay, apart from, let's say, that instinct for problem solving, working under constraints, and having that sort of mindset of making sure that you're working with the resources at hand. That's what we kind of learn in engineering. There isn't so much interaction with humans, yet engineers end up taking jobs in sales companies. In fact, right from campus, there are sales companies that end up coming to engineering colleges, picking up students to do sales for them and things like that. Why do you think that's not common in for dentists? Like, why is it then that there is such a huge sort of sunk cost fallacy, and people really think twice before they take that plunge, before they decide to make that switch?
there's this nice Warren Buffett quote. No, sorry, it's not Warren Buffett. I think it's Benjamin Graham in his book The Intelligent Investor, where he says that dentists think they're really smart, that they'll make a lot of money, so they don't bother investing. They don't even
Okay.
pursue the study of investing because they think they're making enough money, because they think that their life is really good. Whereas with the engineers thing, like how you mentioned that, hey, the status thing is also not there. While you're in college itself, you're exploring other opportunities. Dentists don't do that. They don't explore other opportunities. They're like, that's one thing that I've noticed. Like, no matter how much I would try and tell my friends, bro or sis, or not sis, yeah, but explore. There are other opportunities there too. You guys can look at it, look at the math, do the math. Things are better. They would be like, no, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. That was the problem. So they wouldn't explore. And the second thing that I want to mention is, most people don't know about what the job opportunities are. And when I say most people, I'm talking about myself. Most of the times okay, this is just a quick disclaimer. Whenever I say most people, I'm talking about myself. Right? When I said something like, dude, it took me so long to realize that there was a job called copywriting. Right? I knew I was okay at writing. But I didn't know there was a job called copywriting. I didn't know what copy was. It was only when I took up a consulting gig at a startup that I realized, oh crap, I could always monetize that skill that I had. People don't understand that there's this entire supply demand thing. It's become so reduced to just a funny phrase that people don't realize that there are so many cool jobs out there. You can actually discover. Taking some time to find out a good job is half the battle. Getting the job is much easier, but if you can identify those niches, see where your skills actually meet a demand, that's so much more important. So yeah, man, I didn't know what copywriting was. I didn't know I was a good copywriter. I needed that external environment to bring me there. But yeah, anything, Kieran?
Austin, it's funny you say that because when I was learning how to write, this word copy kept coming up, and I was like, what is copy?
Exactly.
I genuinely didn't know, and then I was like, I looked it up, and I was like, it's writing, it's just words. So yeah, I didn't know either. I didn't know.
I think that's a filter. That's a filter that the world has for you. They're like, no, you have to find out what's copywriting, otherwise we're not going to let you monetize the skill that you have. But yeah.
But I mean, like I tell my friends or my girlfriend, I'm like, there is quite a lot of stuff that you can do online just to make money with words. And even as you're saying it, like it's a very foreign, alien thing
Yeah,
to think what someone's going to pay you to write. But the good thing about online writing is that it's kind of like the gatekeeper for any online business. If you could have the best product in the world, but if someone like keyboard diarrheas about it, no one's going to buy it.
yeah,
And so again, it's one of those skills, like you were saying, that there's a lot of areas you can go into: design, writing, that sort of stuff. And once you've picked up the basics, a whole world of opportunity is there that you don't even know exists because you haven't exposed yourself to it.
exactly. And
Makes
that's
sense.
also the idea of, how we said we all advocate at the end, enter into the digital world, pick up some digital skills. I keep saying, like, don't get overwhelmed by that idea, right? Being comfortable with tech does not necessarily mean that you need to write how assembly code works or whatever. There's so much of tech beyond that too. You don't need to
Hmm.
be a computer programmer or need to know how to do that.
Hmm.
Writing online is a digital skill. Designing is a digital skill. And a lot of the practice and effort that you have put uh, in your early days can easily get transferred there. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think a lot of stuff is no code now as well. I mean, humans, we always naturally gravitate to whatever is least effort, right? So, 10 years ago, if you wanted to build a website, you had to know exactly what you were doing. Now, I don't know code, but I think if you gave me 6 hours, I could build a pretty good website just by following a YouTube video. And
Yeah.
then someone, and like you're saying, a dentist will Google someone to make you a website, and then you literally go on YouTube and build this guy a website and charge £2,000.
yeah,
And like there really is this whole thing online that it, it's very early days. People don't really realize what's going on, and you want to get in there early.
yeah. I'll tell you this, okay? So I was working at this one clinic, uh, and I asked the doctor. I recognize the need, right? So I was like, see, the future is anyway digital. It is tech, right? So either you get in now or you get in later, but you're sometime going to get into it. There's no avoiding it. So
Yeah.
I recognize this, and I noticed that most of the dentists in the area didn't have a website, didn't have an online presence. So I asked them, I was like, what about your website? And all of them just kept saying, yeah, I asked this guy or I told this agency, they built this really nice website, but now I can't maintain it, right? Or they would be like, they were quoting me, a certain amount which was exorbitant, and I was like, I just didn't bother. Uh, the thing is, because we don't recognize how easy it is to build a website, it's very easy for someone to come and swindle you. Tell you, no, you have to pay this much, and they'll probably just make it on a simple website builder. It won't even be probably a good website or a web app. And if you don't know those other skills, the you're losing out on that opportunity because it's so easy to build a website for you. And also, being able to build a website as a dentist is a huge multiplier, or being able to write as a dentist is a huge multiplier, right? It's a small kill that you can just pack, but it just multiplies the amount of reach that you have, the amount of opportunities that you have. Uh, it also multiplies the amount of, for example, the opportunity that you can pick up even beyond dentistry, right? Because now you know that I have these skills, you can identify, different niches or carve out niches for you. You could be the guy to go to for building websites for dental clinics, right?
Yeah.
You can specialize in that particular niche too. So what I want my point here is just packing in or exploring those curiosities, asking, dude, what is this about? And then navigating down into first principles will just multiply your career. Uh, okay, awesome. Any closing thoughts? Kieran, do you have any questions for us? We have one dentist or one medical professional and one engineer that pretty much should give you a good sample size of India. Do you have any question for us?
Rahan, you said you guys had a side business for making money. What are you guys doing at the moment?
So we're selling T-shirts online.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Uh, yeah. So we decided to take the easy path, pick some pop culture references, put them on T-shirts, and then I was actually at the time learning how to do PPC ads and social media advertising. So
Mhm.
I actually wanted to see if I can sell something online,
Mhm.
because I was doing it with the idea that at some point for my startup, I would make these ads But as an experiment, we started with the t-shirts itself, and then it started picking up. So that's when we realized that, rather than freelancing or doing other jobs, this was just like an easy 1 or 2 hour a day.
Yeah.
And we were making significant amount of money what we needed for the startup as well as ourselves. So
Yeah.
then we just decided to build a proper, again, using all these no code tools that we have out there.
Yeah.
Setting up a Shopify website, just creating a little bit of inventory, finding print on demand vendor to print the t-shirts with literally no investment, just a couple of $1,000, which is like $20 in the UK. We just started the business and then we grew it from there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I love about the whole online side is that, like, if you want to be a dentist, you have to fork up 50 grand to take the
To
risk,
set
right?
things
But
up
like,
to, yeah.
yeah, man, if you wanted to be, if you're like, oh, maybe I could be a designer, you have to invest like a month of learning and $10 to
Yeah.
maybe make yourself a website. And then if it doesn't work, what have you lost? Like nothing.
Exactly.
But like these little experiments that you can keep running, they open up more opportunities the more you do it. And particularly for you guys, like if you're in India, what I love is that the internet is kind of like the great equalizer. Huh?
Yeah.
If you can just get some Wi-Fi, and let's be honest, man, you Indians, you've got great business sense, right? You've got that in your blood. So I even see it on Twitter. Like I told you guys, the area of Twitter I'm on, a lot of Indian people, and they are hustling, man, and it's cool to see. So it just makes sense, really, doesn't it?
So
and go ahead.
No, so what I was saying is like, I think there is a lot of potential for the future of India because like it's very similar to the dental story too. We worked hard all our life, and we're good. We know how to work hard. We know how to hustle and grind. So that part of it is sorted. Now it's just about grabbing those fruits, and I think that's going to be a lot more faster because people are recognizing it, or they'll probably recognize it with this podcast. But yeah,
I think like the pandemic also, while it came with its challenges, was a blessing in disguise for some people because it brought them online.
Yeah,
a lot of people who were hesitating to embrace the digital world actually came online, and then that kind of opened up their sort of horizons to the possibilities that are out there, especially for for us in countries where you're not paid exceptionally well for the jobs that you do within the country. The idea that you could work remotely for someone else abroad kind of made them realize that there's so much money to be made, at the same time so much less to spend in that process, because anyway cost of living and things like that are cheap here, and if you end up working for a client abroad who pays you by the standards there, you're going to mint money, just being in a low cost country like ours. And I mean, that awareness in itself is, I think, going to be great for the future generations of our country in particular, because now you're like, okay, we don't have to spend too much money having to go there to start work there. We could just be digital and service people from right here. And I mean, I think that kind of awareness was also important, and while it was forced, I think it was about time that it happened.
And they say that COVID has sort of pushed,
accelerated. It's accelerated the world. I think it's time we.
Sorry, man.
No, go ahead.
Because I want to leave England. It makes no sense to me if I'm going to be digital in a year or two to be paying kind of
so much for rent
a month on rent when I could be sitting on a beach in South America or come see my friends in India. And it just so like you're saying, well, why people are always saying, oh, I want to move to England or move to America. It's like actually all you want is American business and take that home with you.
I think to summarize, I have a good ending. One thing that we spend, I think, easily more than 1.5 hours on this, and one thing that I realized most was that we're all very similar. Take off the skin tone and the accent, and we all think very similar. I think that's most important. Like we had one of the things that we used to work towards was this thing called global citizen. Most of us think alike. We all like we look at the grass on the other side, others look at the grass on this side, but we are all trying to figure it out. And it was really nice, Kieran, to meet you, to have this conversation with you, to pick your brains, and I hope we got you some perspective too.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. I've really enjoyed it, guys. Thank you.